Yogi Roth with us, Pac-12 Network analyst, Skyping on in. Yogi, the idea that J.J. Taylor averaged 5 yards plus, Eno Benjamin averaged 5 yards plus. I don't know anywhere else in the country where two schools that are an hour, 10 minutes apart have that going for them. I think that's gotten lost here in the Jaden Daniels ASU era that I think's about to happen. Herm hasn't said 100% it's going to be Jaden. I think most of us believe that it will be. I think having JJ there for Khalil, just give me a thought on the running attack between these two schools, that it may not be as wide open as it needs to be.
Well, I'll tell you what, and you and I cover this conference, with an obsession.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize heading into the year until Dave Hirsch, who runs the communications of the Pac-12, sent me a note where he said, 4 of the top 10 rushers in the country come from the Pac-12 conference that are returning in college football this year. And I sat back and I was like, wow, what a stat when you look at those two guys, Joshua Kelly, Jamar Jefferson, and Zach Moss got hurt. At Utah, he would have been in that conversation as well, statistically at least. And to speak of the two that you referenced in your community, it's electric and it's real. J.J. Taylor got the chance to meet him and spend time with him for the first time in media days, and he's an impressive body type. He's not as slender as maybe you'd think. I mean, he's a thick young man, obviously incredible skill set, great vision. Their running scheme, I think, fits him perfectly, and you add in the threat of Khalil, it's only going to open things up for a player like him. And then on the flip side, when I look at Eno Benjamin, and it's going to seem dramatic in terms of a comp, but his style reminds me of Emmitt Smith. So much so that this summer I had a chance to meet Emmitt for the first time at the opening, which is kind of football heaven for high school football players. And it was at the Star in Frisco, which is the Cowboys practice facility, and sat on the sideline with him for about 30 minutes and talked about his running style, talked about how he developed. And then went back and watched tape of Eno and talked to Eno about it. And he said, a Texas guy, his style, he kind of grew up patterning his game around Emmitt Smith's style. And I think when you look at his patience, the way he can explode, how he can play, catch the ball out of the backfield, and even pass pro, very similar to number 22 from the Cowboys that we grew up just kind of watching and adoring. And I say that on the heels of a guy with 300 carries last year. And Arizona State changed their style of play in week 4 in Seattle at UW to being a more of a pro-style, traditional, downhill running team, not just because that's what won a year ago with Manny Wilkins and N'Keal Harry, but Herm Edwards knew that he had to foreshadow this thing. And regardless whoever the starter is, it was going to be a first-year player, whether it's Jaden Daniels or one of the other 3 quarterbacks. They're going to have a pseudo-veteran offensive line with Cole Cabral leading the way. And he knew he was going to get Eno back for another year. So he set out a program, mindset, philosophical style, of course, scheme approach around the running game. And Eno thrived. And I think he's going to do it again this year. They've got weapons on the outside that will keep people honest. Jaden, or whoever wins the game or wins the job, will, I think, have the ability to make the throws, to keep defenses honest. And I love it. And I would expect these two young men to lead not only the Pac-12 South in rushing, or the conference, but will again be in the top 10 in the country.
What do you like most about Kevin Sumlin and Herm Edwards as guys?
That's a great question. I think for Kevin Sumlin, I love being around coaches who have been through the fire. I can remember, writing Coach Carroll's book and spending time with them, and he was just so carefree. And I remember one night asking him, why can you just be so relaxed all the time? And he said, well, I've been, quote unquote, killed already a couple times. And I know that's dramatic, but yeah. Patriots, Jets, fired, kind of left on the side of at least the football coaching streets, never to be picked up again. And, he couldn't even get an interview in North Carolina years ago when, this was back in 2003. He couldn't even get an interview for the head coaching job and becomes the SC coach, a few months later. I say that because Kevin Sumlin has this mentality of I've been through a lot, from Texas A&M, the hype of that, the lows of that I'm good, and we're going to be good no matter what. And he has this experience to him that I think just makes you want to go play for him and be extremely comfortable. And I'd say the same thing about Herm. He's just a little bit more senior, and he's got this ability that you would say, I'll do anything for you, and I'm really curious about what you're doing in that program. And I wasn't on the Herm train, when everybody got offered to go on when he took that job and that epic press conference. But to watch him slowly build this thing with a new model, and I got to say, it is a different model than anywhere else in the Pac-12 conference, and to watch it working and watching how not only existing players love it, but the parents of recruits that I get to meet fall in love with it. The honesty and the vibrance that he walks into a living room with is contagious. It's why they've recruited so well in Southern California, and it's why they're building this program to be not only have an incredible foundation, but I think to reach, heights that maybe it hasn't seen, at least since the early part of Todd Graham's era when they won the Pac-12 South. So I'm a believer in both of these guys. I would play for them. I would want to work for them. How do they do it? What's the magic within both of these programs? And both of them have, unique styles right now that are not only plugged into recruiting in Texas and Los Angeles, but have their own ethos to it that I think is really attractive.
Thanks, as always, for the visit, Yogi. Appreciate it.
Anytime, man. I hope to see you at Camp T.